Hey, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today from whichever time zone and whichever corner of the world you are joining us. I hope the next 1 hour will be useful to you. And well, let's be respectful of everyone's time and dig right in. Despite some recent gains, small gains in the representation of women in computing, we still have a concerning story to look at. So for example, the latest NC-WIT by the numbers report states that only 26% of the US computing workforce is currently women. 21% of computer and information systems bachelor's degrees in the US are going to women, and only 18% of the chief information officer positions in the top 1,000 companies are being held by women. These are stats from 2019. While these numbers are not where we would like them to be, the fact is that among these women who are professionals and leaders in the field are many accomplished and worthy role models with inspiring stories of success. And they have the potential to impact the career choices of women and girls all over. So hence we are here today. ACM Women Global Leadership is pleased to announce the launching of a new webinar series, Celebrating Technology Leaders, where we will be highlighting the stories of women in computing who are successfully leading within a diverse set of careers, spanning all the entire technology field. Welcome again. I'm Bushra Anjum, and I'm the Standing Committee's Chair for ACM Women, and also the Section Editor for ACM Ubiquity. I have a Ph.D. in computer science, focused on performance evaluation and queuing theory. Then I have worked as an engineer with Amazon for Amazon Prime, and I have worked as a data scientist for a San Francisco-based startup, Doximity. Currently, I am at Doximity, and I'm leading their data department as the data analytics manager. So today, in our special inaugural session, we have a panel consisting of ACM Women Global Leadership members, and we will be discussing ACM Women's commitment and efforts to support, celebrate, and advocate for women in computing. We will also dive deeper into the rationale behind this new series, what we hope to accomplish, and what the global audience can expect from us in the coming months. Very briefly, in our panel, we have Jodi Tims, the Chair of ACM Women. We have Rayan Eifer, the Regional Committee's Chair, and we have Emilia Cole, the Treasurer from ACM Women Global Leadership. I'll go around. Would you guys please share your personal story with us, your journey, career, your association with ACM? Jodi, can we start from you?
Absolutely, Bushra. Thank you. So my name is Jodi Tims. I am the chair of ACM-W. I began my journey in computer science actually as a master's student because my undergraduate degree is in mathematics. That's turned out to be a very useful feature of my life because now I am currently a professor of the practice and director of CS programs for Northeastern University's California campus, where one of our major initiatives is an Align program, which allows people to transition to computer science at the master's level if they don't have an undergraduate degree in computer science. So I actually can relate very well to that. I started my journey in computer science at University of Pittsburgh. I worked pretty much part-time my whole graduate degree, focusing on programming languages, specifically compilation for distributed memory systems at the time. Since that time, I've spent my career teaching in mostly undergraduate programs at a variety of universities here in the US. I've been with ACM-W in one capacity or another now for probably getting close to 15 years and find this work very fulfilling. So looking forward to what this series has to offer us.
Thanks, Jodi. Rayan?
Hello, everybody. I am a representative of the generation called baby boomers, which may explain the major reason why I'm still continuing to work. I am teaching and taking other responsibilities, varying from technology support to faculty members, quality management in education, to working for an online institutional history archive of my university. How did I come here? like Jodi, I loved maths, and I chose mathematics as my undergraduate studies. Actually, we didn't have an undergraduate computer engineering program at that time. My university was offering only graduate programs and also offering some elective courses. I convinced my advisors for non-technical electives that database management is a non-technical topic. May I take it, please? So I took a lot of courses before I graduated. Actually, I loved maths, but I figured out that what I actually love is problem solving. And I thought computers would be the best tools to do whatever I love. So I continued my education in computer engineering. Me and my husband, we were classmates, and he's also a computer engineer. We were working when we were doing our masters and working at that time, and we got married. I was hoping to continue with an academic career at my university, but changed my mind and started to work for the industry. In 1981, after a week I had my master's degree, I had a baby. And after 12 years of working in the industry, one day I said, no, this is not the life that I want to live, and decided to become a housewife. Because yes, I was earning a lot of money, but I didn't have the time to spend it. But that week I was invited to this new established private nonprofit First University of Turkey to teach at least part-time. And it has been 30 years now. I love teaching, even online teaching. Why I am still working for Women in Computing? My husband is a computer engineer. I have two sons who are computer engineers, and I have two digital native grandsons. So you can understand what kind of a minority I am in the family, and I understand the problems, and I decided to continue for working for Women in Computing. What about ACM? I was a student member. I don't know how I became, but in mid-70s I was an ACM student member. But my volunteer work for ACM-W begins in 2001. One day I went to the class at the beginning of fall semester, CS1 course, and I said, where are the girls? That night I checked the global situation and came across with Tracy Camp's Incredibly Shrinking Pipeline article, and immediately sent an email to the first contact I could find on ACM-W website. I received a response immediately from Anita Borg. And I had no idea what I could do, but I had the will to spend some time and effort to work for more women in computing. So I became an ambassador representing my country, and then ACM Europe Council was established. I became a member of the council, established ACM-W Europe, and led it for 5 years. And now here I am responsible for ACM-W regional activities. Thank you.
What an inspiring generational story, Ryan. Emilia, please tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Emilia Cole. I'm a former program manager, and I started my career in the Microsoft Developer Network, putting together machines. I've kind of moved into interactive project management and then have winded my way through the product lifecycle where I'm now a PhD student interested in research into how people interact with machines, specifically looking at how people learn online. And I'm a new member to the ACM-W leadership community, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Emilia, and thank you, everyone. I am personally so thrilled to have all three of you here on the panel today. You represent just a wide variety of careers, career paths, choices, this time that you have spent in the industry, so that's just amazing. And since we have talked about ACM women briefly and what the roles of each of these wonderful women are in that arc, let me take a couple of minutes and just say briefly that the audience may have heard about ACM-W in the following contexts. So ACM Women offers students and professional chapters where the goal is to build community and break down feelings of isolation. ACM Women also offers celebrations, which are international network of self-sustaining small conferences with the aim to connect technical women who are working or studying within a particular geographical location. Then we have ACM Women Scholarships, which are given to support women students, undergraduate or graduate, in computer science and related disciplines to attend research-related computer science conferences. And then our most recent initiative is ACM Women Rising Star Award, where we recognize a woman whose early career contributions have made a significant impact on the computing discipline, an annual award. If you have questions on any of the above or how to get involved in any of the above, please visit our newly revamped website, for which we have to thank our communications chair, Bettina and Sarah. Our website is women.acm.org. Again, it's women.acm.org. Coming back to our panel, would you each like to share one personal story of struggle in the workplace and how your association with ACM or ACM Women helped you overcome it? Emilia?
Yeah, so for me, I'm in the midst of my PhD, and the PhD process can be very isolating. And this is not due to the pandemic. I think this is just a systemic kind of feeling in the PhD. And ACM-W has really given me that community of women who has kind of shared the same goal of advocating and supporting women in tech, and has really helped connect me to a purpose and to people who can help me be successful and who I can help make successful.
Excellent. Thank you. Rhian, would you like to go next?
So I was actually not really aware that I was the only female computer engineer when I was working for the industry. Also, now I think, and I never had a female boss, but I think I was very lucky to work with wonderful people. I understood the value of being an ACM member, an ACM volunteer, when I started to work for the university better. ACM gave me the feeling of being a professional in my field and helped me to follow up the advances in the field and gave support to implement my plans and appreciated my work. ACM-W helped me to understand the different problems in different regions and brought a broader vision and value to the time and effort I'm spending as a volunteer.
Thank you. Jodi, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So I think my biggest struggle was just one of kind of finding my own voice. I was pretty timid and not all that good at sort of tossing my ideas into the ring when I would be in with my colleagues in any kind of a meeting or whatever. And you know, when I moved to my position in Ohio about 18, 20 years ago, I was invited by the Ohio Celebration of Women in Computing to come be on a panel which I did, and it was great. But in that one moment, I met a community that became just a really important influence in my life. They were this group of women who kind of shared some background of struggling their way to the point where they were, realizing what challenges they would face. And from there, I got connected into ACM-W more generally and began to work with the global organization, doing celebrations, and then vice chair and now chair. So I think I think of ACM-W as that place that helped me sort of find my voice and be able to contribute to whatever it was that I was working on at the time in a better way.
ACM-W is a place where you found your voice and where I found my voice, and I think that's the common theme that all of us are talking about. The support of ACM and ACM-W for young professionals and students, well, all professionals and students, is well recognized. However, there are some tough questions that need to be asked sometime or the other, so let's make this panel a little more interesting. There is an unfortunate misconception in some quarters that ACM, and by extension ACM women, is for academicians only, or those who are aspiring to have a career in academia. Is that true, and how did it come about? Jodi?
So I have lots of thoughts on the issue, admittedly without a lot of hard data to substantiate them, but I'll give my opinion anyways. I think a large part of the conception that ACM is an academic organization really goes way back to the historical beginnings of the organization. The early formation involved mostly academics from institutions like Columbia, Harvard, and MIT. Those folks who were not academicians were researchers, maybe from a government lab or industry like Bell Labs. So while there was involvement by industry people early on, it certainly wasn't industry practitioners as we would understand many computing professionals today to be. So I think it kind of started there. I think ACM also has, admittedly, a huge emphasis on research, right? Publications, conferences, and that's one of the things we as ACM members love about the organization is it can be our source for the up to the minute information about what's going on in the discipline. But I think that research is frequently associated with academia, but we also know that there are research arms in industry and a lot of the ACM Digital Library contributions have been made by those whose careers are in industry. I think probably the third contributing factor would be that volunteer leadership positions, presidents, the ACM board, committees, SIG chairs are often filled by academics. To a certain degree, this follows from the historical involvement of academics in volunteer service, but I think it's also somewhat motivated by the fact that most academics have a sort of expectation in their careers that they are going to give back to their discipline in some way. So they are very generally active in volunteer service in a lot of circles. But I think at the end of all of this, though, I do think that it's important to recognize that ACM has involved industry professionals from the beginning. In the last decade or so, the Practitioners Board came into existence and was indicative of ACM's desire to develop programs that support professional needs of practitioners and provide access to resources and services that can enhance technical development for all computing professionals. The ACM Learning Center communication is the monthly announcement of much of the training and speakers that are aimed at practitioners and can be taken advantage of by all ACM members. In addition, things like ACM MemberNet, Career News, and other regular communications have become increasingly more balanced in their focus.
Thank you for sharing all that. Emilia, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so coming primarily from industry, I mean, the focus that ACM has on research, I feel like academic research and the way that it's communicated creates a lot of barriers if you're not embedded in the community and the way of thinking. So there's a lot of jargon and language, there's the format in which it's published, as well as a lot of gatekeeping in terms of like the cost. So it really is limiting for a lot of people. And in some way, I feel like the academy has kind of done a poor job of communicating to industry. And even within like our own disciplines, there's like ranking essentially as to which science is better or applied science being less. And I think the point is that we really just need to build on these collaborations that we need for the future. And I think that that's kind of the direction that will help sustain us ongoing.
Rayan, what would be your thoughts?
Yeah, I had the misconception too. And then I checked with our wonderful COO, Pat, the percentage of ACM members from academia and industry. You will not believe this, but nearly 50% are from industry. I was thinking that need is the driving force, and one benefits more from ACM if they are working on a thesis, researching, teaching, etc. And I was also thinking that in the industry, one doesn't have spare time for volunteering, especially for demanding positions like Jodi was talking about. The leadership positions are very demanding. In the industry or job description, workload, reporting mechanisms, everything are very demanding, and usually you focus to the specific tasks that you are responsible for, working overtime, especially if you are a perfectionist, and you don't have the energy for volunteer work. But if you're in academia, you can use your time in a flexible way. Still you work a lot, still you work overtime, but you can manage your volunteer work together with your paid work.
Understanding the historical context, as Jodi said, and then recognizing that 50% of our members are from industry, as Rayan said, and then we need to build on these collaborations. Emilia beautifully put that. By the way, for our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to use the Q&A widget, which you will find on your screen, and we'll try to take some of them towards the end. Continuing our discussion from academia versus industry, women are an underrepresented group. No two opinions on that. What do you think are some of the common challenges that women in industry and academia face? And what may be some of the unique challenges that are unique to academia and unique to industry? Emilia, how about we start with you?
Sure. So I've thought a lot about this particular topic and thinking about kind of the construction that we have of gender. And I don't know that there's necessarily differences between industry and academia. I think it's more dependent on like the organization or the culture that really kind of shapes that for each of us. And Carolyn Perez wrote this book, Invisible Women. I don't know if anyone has read this, but she framed it in the sense that the world is really not designed for women, and that the technology and research use men as the design standard. And then in that process, women are actually harmed. So like simple examples that she gave were things like representations of women in emojis, to way more complex topics that deal with like women having distinctly different heart attack symptoms. So when we think about us as developers, designers, and experience, we actually, if we're underrepresented, then we have more power in our voice, but we have more obstacles in kind of getting that voice heard. We have to overcome what is considered normal to create the very like female-centric or women-centric experience. And that has this downstream effect for women everywhere. When we think about if we develop a system that detects heart attacks and we only use men as the standard, then we're missing out on saving a lot of different lives. So I think there's a lot of things that come out of just this like general experience of being a woman. And also I like to point out like some of the downstream effects also include like policies, things such as that affect family events, so women having children or caring for elderly. There was a recent study that was published that showed that in the academy, women published 24% less this year than they did in the previous year. So this really shows that the social supports and mechanisms are necessary for women to not only become successful, but to maintain their success.
Beautifully said. And Rayan, you also have both industry and academia experience. What will be your thoughts?
Yeah, the common ones are unfriendly, women-unfriendly work environments. I mean, when planning, the maternal responsibilities are usually not considered. As Jodi says, at meetings, you raise your hand and others jump in and your voice is not heard. Conscious and unconscious bias, and the glass ceiling. Unique to academia is the shrinking pipeline. The title is important to become one of the decision makers. You have to be a professor. And when we look at the percentages, are not good on women's side.
Yeah. The titles, unfortunately, are something that a lot of us have to deal with. There is still a lot of worth associated with titles. And this reminds me of something, and I would like to go back to the previous question when we were talking about misconceptions about some of the support that ACM or ACM Women offers. Rayan made an excellent comment and shared the statistic that 50% of our members are from the industry. Just building up on that, what are some of the initiatives that ACM Women in particular is currently undertaking to support practitioner women or those who are seeking a career in industry? Jodi, let's start from you.
Yeah, so I think probably the thing that's biggest on our radar right now to address practitioners is the focus that we've been shifting on to professional chapters. We are looking at ACM-W professional chapters as an opportunity for the industry community to bring together the women in a particular region, for example, to form their own community of support and do with that community what they see fit. In some cases, they may want to take a technical focus, right, so that they would have speakers coming in talking about technical issues. In some cases, they might want to do volunteer work, collaborating perhaps even with their academic sort of community in the area so that they can bridge that academic and industry divide. And that has a lot of potential benefits for students who are currently in that pipeline to get a broad perspective of different career possibilities and a lot of opportunities for things like internships and entry-level positions coming their way. So I think the professional chapter is probably our #1 thing. And of course, I wouldn't want to neglect Bushra, this wonderful series that you're doing now that is going to also highlight some of the leaders in the practitioner world and bring those to women so that they can learn from them.
Hold on to that thought. I'll come right back to it. But Rayan, you are the regional committee's chair. Would you like to add something to the initiatives?
Yes, ACM-W professional chapters are going to be very important. Sorry, because the feeling of belonging to a professional society is important for women in technology, who are already a minority. So when you're a member, you can clearly see that you're not alone. You're not the only one facing the challenges of being a woman in the field. And ACM-W professional chapters bring together women in computing to continue the impact envisioned by ACM-W in their local environments. They not only network and support each other, but also act as mentors to student chapters. And the events organized by professional chapters are in their native languages and focus on the local needs and interests. And if funding is needed for organizing an event, the prestigious ACM identity opens the doors and assures the potential supporters for the good deed. However, there are cultural differences and that become a barrier for ACM-W professional chapters. In some cultures, like mine, and some more European cultures, women may not want to be recognized distinctly in a separate women's group and prefer to work as a part of an ACM professional chapter, even though their main focus is for women in computing. Actually, ACM-W professional chapters are new but increasing in number. For example, in 2012, there were none in Europe. Now I checked and saw 10 active European ACM-W professional chapters. So we are hoping to increase them in the future with the help of amazing volunteers who are going to join us.
Rayan, you brought in stats. I love it. Being from a data background, that's awesome. Emilia, what will be your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah. No, I echo the sentiment that ACM-W really provides this network of women who really want each other to succeed. And we're composed solely of volunteers who are absolutely dedicated to this feeling of value and achievement in terms of like the sense of belonging and identity, regardless of what you do in tech. And I think that is kind of, for me, coming from the human side, is very integral part of being a part of ACM-W.
Thank you. And as I said, we all share that sentiment. It gives us a feeling of belonging and a space where we can make things happen. And talking about making things happen, and Jodi gave me a great segue for this too, let me take a couple of minutes and just talk about our series, Celebrating Technology Leaders. For this is only the pilot session. So we will be focusing on two things: career coaching and leadership advice. I have already touched upon the current stats of women in computing. Here are another set of interesting statistics. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median number of years that wage and salary workers had been with their current employer was 4.2. It was published in 2018. So on average, the wage and salary workers are staying with their employer for 4.2 years and then shifting. And when we look at these stats from the perspective of age, so the workers' ages 55 to 64, their tenure, median tenure is 10 years, whereas the workers' ages 25 to 34, their median tenure is 3 times less. It's only 2.8 years. So every 2.8 years, people who are in the age group 25 to 34 are expected to change an employer, maybe change career paths too. A bird just bumped against the window. Sorry about that. So careers are no longer ladders. As it's rightly being said, careers are more jungle gyms now. Whereas ladders, we have a clear direction. You move up by taking one step at a time. Jungle gyms are like a web where there are paths and points everywhere. At a jungle gym, there are 3 basic moves. You can move up, you can move down, and you can move sideways. And the best part is that there are no bad moves if it is the right move for you. Our careers are evolving. We are changing companies, we are changing industries, we are even changing or crossing the traditional you shall not pass boundaries between academia and industry, government and nonprofit. There is a wealth of knowledge out there, a wealth of career paths out there that needs exploration. And hence we designed this series. We want to enable students and early career professionals to expand their horizons, learn about the multitude of career options available, and make informed choices about what's the right next step for your professional journey. Starting next session, we will invite speakers who will belong to the general umbrella of computing, but will represent different career paths and technical areas. In their journeys, we will try to find inspiration and advice on how to be successful in those career choices. And this is where I need your help. What career paths and technical areas do you want to learn about? What would you like us to focus on? Please think about that, hold on to that thought, and I'll come back to you. For now, let's go back to our panel. Jodi, Rayan, Emilia, and others from the leadership we have been discussing and brainstorming about this idea for a while now, and Thank you so much for all the discussions, inputs, and advice you guys have shared with me. What is your hope from this series? What would you like us as a group to achieve? Let's start from Ryan.
I am hoping that the series will help to reduce the retention rate by informing, motivating, by role models.
Beautifully and succinctly said. Emilia?
For me, coming from the PhD and the academic side, I really hope that this series will provide students with the understanding that there is that variety of career choices that you mentioned, Bushra. There are a multitude of paths, and that being a professor is just one job of so many opportunities that are available when going through the academic and industry path.
Jodi?
So my thoughts are all over the place, but I think the biggest thing that I hope this series would do for us is to establish for all of our ACM-W members and those who choose to join this series that ACM-W is an organization that does envelop both industry and academic professionals, and that there is a lot of common ground and place for us to work together to support and celebrate and advocate for women in computing. So this gives us that spotlight where we can come together and talk as computing professionals while still supporting the uniqueness of the industry practitioners and the academician.
Supporting the uniqueness of industry and academia. Thanks for stating that, Jodi. Continuing on the same line of thought, as I was stating that it's now expected, it's part of our career paths that we'll be changing companies and maybe changing careers too. Sometimes it's our choice, and at other times it's just the technology. It shifts. Things that were very popular at one time, in 5 years, they are no longer there. The concept of employability has gained mainstream attention. What, in your opinion, is something or some characteristics that make someone employable across all these shifting variables? Jodi, let's start from you.
Yeah, so when you coming from an educator background and thinking about what it is that we try to build into our students to allow them to be successful in any one of a number of arenas they might choose to go into. Certainly, technical expertise has to be there if you're in the computing industry. But I think what really sets people up well for success are some of what some people would like to claim are softer skills or professional skills, the ability to communicate well, right? The ability, whether in writing or in speaking. The problem solving that Rayanne mentioned early on. As a computer scientist, this should be like one of the key things that is in your personality. You just love the challenge of a good problem and you're not afraid to go after it. But we know that the problems that we face in this field are really big. So understanding how to work collaboratively with teams, I think, is another huge feature of successful people. So to me, I think it's that combination of all of those aspects and the people that pay attention to their strengths and weaknesses, and particularly try to address the weaknesses and put themselves in positions where they have to, talk when they don't like to talk, or work together when they would prefer to do the job by themselves. I think those are the things that really set us up well for success.
Thank you. Rayanne, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I completely agree with communication skills. So employers are going to ask people, what do you know? What can you do? How can you help? And then we'll ask to prove it. And teamwork is going to be one of the major skills that is needed because it's not in the past. Everything is a teamwork. And leadership skills as well. Not only technical knowledge, but also other soft skills will be necessary.
Emilia?
Yeah, so I love this question. So for me, I'm looking at how people learn online. So I'm looking a lot at this kind of independent nature that we need in the future in order to be successful. So touching on things like teamwork, we really need a community of people to rely upon to kind of help keep us educated and informed as we navigate our careers. kind of developing a sense of self-efficacy and that we're capable of doing things. And I think that also comes from support and community, as well as like fundamentally knowing how to learn. So we kind of moving away from the subject-oriented nature of education and moving more towards this skill-based. And this is largely due to the fact that we are uncertain about what the careers in the future looks like. And we'll need different sets of skills in order to kind of overcome some of the barriers that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah, and I agree with that. In today's age, learning how to learn is as important as learning how to unlearn and let go of some of those associations that you hold so closely to your heart. On the same front, talking about soft skills, though soft is a questionable term here. I think soft skills are harder than hard skills in traditional terms. Two skills, and I think it's a question that came up too in our widget, is that presenting oneself well and confident communications. These are two things that people from underrepresented minorities suffer from. They are not able to handle that well. In general, there might be exceptions. So what would be a couple of tips that you would like to share on how to present yourself better and be more confident in your communication? Let's start with Ryan.
Be brave. Be yourself. And tell whatever you really would like to share and put it into the brains of people who are just asking you questions. Yeah, being yourself is very important. People have to trust you.
Jodi?
Yeah, I was just doing a little question and answer thing with one of our audience participants, and the point was made that sometimes people can bring, all kinds of really good skills when you look at their resume, and yet when you sit down and talk with them, they don't necessarily present with confidence, right? And they're shy, or they don't know how to articulate what they know or what they can do. And so I think that building of confidence is a real key to successful career, right? But I think the only way you can do that, it's not really something we can teach people, right? We can't say, this is how you be confident. You just be confident. That doesn't make any sense, right? We have to build that. It has to evolve over time. So, kind of hailing back to my previous answer, stepping out, putting oneself in a position that's uncomfortable, but you survive it. And you learn from it, and then the next time you do the same thing, you do it better. I think that builds confidence, and confidence is a real important key.
Emilia?
So one of my favorite experiences was going to see Rosalind Picard speak on effective computing in a huge auditorium, and she was awkward, and it was amazing. That you can just be an incredible scientist, an incredible person in your career, and you still have like these human characteristics that really make you approachable. So I think like some of the flaws that we kind of see in ourselves are probably amplified internally, but externally, I think we're far more accepting of like the variations. And just to go out and to echo Ryan and Jodi, be brave. A lot of these things are hard, and we will make mistakes, but we will recover.
Be brave and stretch yourself. And Ryan, let me come back to you, because this is something of personal interest to me. I'm originally from Pakistan. I grew up there, and all my schooling was there. I did my undergraduate and master's. And after that, I had the Fulbright scholarship, and I came to the States for a Ph.D. So I was in Pakistan for the first 24, 25 years of my life. And we don't use English there. Though we write it, we don't really speak there generally. And when I came to the States, I struggled with speaking English. I have internalized that struggle or the fear, and sometimes I still feel that I don't speak right. My accent is not just there. I mix my have, has, and hads. And specifically talking to you, Ryan, because you have a different accent too. You are from Turkey. Have you ever faced that having a different accent or not speaking English your entire life became an obstacle for you, or something that you had to struggle with?
Yes, especially when I was working with my colleagues who are all native speakers and from United States. But working with European colleagues has been wonderful. Everybody has a different accent. The important thing is we understand each other. I learned English in Turkey in school. I've never lived in an English-speaking country, but I mean, I'm teaching in English, and I have lots of native speaker friends, but the accent is there, and as long as people understand you, it's okay.
Jodi or Emilia, would you have any thoughts on this?
You know, I think in the academic world, particularly when you deal with traditional undergraduate age students, you can get some interesting reactions to a faculty member who comes from another country, let's say into the U.S. to teach. And the students say, I can't understand that person. I can't learn from that person. But I have always maintained that opening a student's eyes, some student that, you know, has spent their whole life in a small U.S. town speaking only English, opening their eyes to the world that's out there by bringing in a variety of people from different countries. It's amazing to watch the transformation that sometimes happens. You know, I think language is obviously can be a barrier. And for better or for worse, English seems to be the language that the tech community has sort of settled on as the standard, which pushes many of our colleagues across the globe to have to work on that skill. Sometimes I wish we could flip it around and make people learn, you know, a different language. I could come and have to speak Turkish, Rayan, and that could be a really interesting thing to do, to flip it around a little bit. But I don't think it has to be a barrier. And I think that's one of the things that we found in our work with ACM-W. As we've traveled, many of us in volunteer positions had the opportunity to travel to foreign countries. There's common ground, there's a way to communicate, and we typically will get past those barriers. So you just keep working on it.
Make it into a learning opportunity. Emilia, go ahead.
Yeah. So in early Microsoft, we had some interns who were deaf. And so Microsoft provided sign language courses to the team in order to be able to communicate effectively. But it was really through technology that we were able to really effectively communicate using instant messenger, and then, you know, just having a coffee and whatnot and having some basic conversations. So I think a lot of it has to do with hiring practices, diversity, inclusion, and growing accustomed to just working a little bit differently.
Yeah, opening our eyes to the world. It's where the world is going. Coming back to something that we discussed earlier, the ACM Women Professional Chapters. Though the student chapters are quite a few in numbers, and many universities and students are aware of that, professional chapters, as it is a newer initiative, and there are only a dozen or so right now, people may not be aware of that or may not know why we should have a professional chapter at all. Rayan, would you like to give us a brief introduction of what ACM professional chapters are and why one should aim for that in their professional circle?
Yeah, first of all, coming together and having a community and talk about what is needed, what can we do for women in computing is a great start. And yes, you may start with big dreams, but starting with small baby steps is very important to have a successful start, kickoff, and then bringing in more volunteers. Here, the basic important thing is volunteer work. I really find a lot of value in volunteer work. And I love working with volunteers because they work from their hearts. And then you touch some lives and you receive feedback from them, which is very rewarding. And they don't have to spend a lot of time. Just focus, start small, bring together people, and try to help based on the needs.
Beautifully said. Jodi, what will be your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be involved with the group in Ohio that I mentioned earlier. This is like a really nice model of what can happen with a group of women who comes together as professionals. We started out with a celebration, which became very successful. We did it over and over again, and the students loved the celebration. But a side effect of that was that we began to build this community of us as professionals. Most of us were academics, but we wanted to have more industry folks involved. I had the privilege of serving as the first chair of their advisory council. So we decided to create this like little advisory council for the celebration. But what happened was that group started to invite in industry folks, and evolved eventually to be the Ohio professional chapter of ACM-W. That community now brings together both academics and industry professionals. They have a regular communication that gives students the opportunity to see internship opportunities when there's going to be speaking events, hackathons, all kinds of things that are happening that would be of interest to the student women in computing. And it gives all of the people that are in the professional chapter that opportunity, as Rayanne put it, to volunteer and give back to that student community and nurture them along.
Thank you for sharing that. And Emilia, since you have a lot of recent industry experience, do you think having a professional chapter like that in maybe your organization or the people you interact with would have been or could be helpful?
Absolutely. I feel like just having access to a community of people who are able to support and encourage you and to share some of those stories. For me, particularly, some mentorship, either receiving or giving, would be and has been incredibly useful for me.
And I was just like, something that perhaps and if you are associated with ACM, then you can and you fit like a homegrown effort. You have access to a lot more mentors, a lot of advice. You can grow your circles of mentors and sponsors. And I think Rayanne has a further follow-up point. Go ahead, Rayanne.
You know what I recently was aware of? Now, because of all the work going on in the world, for women in computing, where the first step has been raising awareness about why it is very important. So companies started to have in their budget some amounts to use for women in computing, but they have no idea what to do with that. If you go there and ask them for funding for your activities or whatever you are focusing on, they are ready to help. So such ACM-W professional chapters are useful for the companies to use their reserved budget items.
Thank you for adding that. Of course, budget is a motivation and a point of concern too for a lot of such groups. So it's good to know about all the support that is available out there. Another point where I would like your input on, it has been wisdom, and I call it wisdom in quotes, that if you go for a graduate career and if you have a PhD, you kind of close your doors from the industry. You become overqualified. Is that true? Jodi?
Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I covered over my unmute button accidentally. No, I absolutely do not think pursuing graduate degrees shuts the door to industry careers. This really was driven home to me in the last year when I moved to the Bay Area and took my my recent position. And as I've interacted with people at Google and Facebook and other Bay Area companies, they are very anxious to have people that have graduate degrees, master's degrees, Ph.D. degrees, because the industry is pushing a lot of the research these days, certainly the applied research, but even some of the more academic natured research. So I've known several people myself that have bounced back and forth between academia and industry and have done so very successfully. I think the bottom line to me is that the more qualified and knowledgeable you become, you have choices as to where you apply that knowledge. And if you want to do industry for a while, that's great. If you want to move to academia for a while, that's great. And there's no barrier between the two, other than perhaps some people's misperception that they are kind of boxed in.
Emilia?
Yeah, just kind of building on this idea of the misperception that exists, I think at least I had this whole notion when I came into academia as like some sort of amazing world that was so different and special from industry, and that really it's people and specific sets of skills that are applicable generally. So I was really surprised at kind of like how much I was learning that actually applied in industry, and how much of my industry experience really helped in the academic sphere. So I feel like there's this strange idea that PhDs will be unhappy in industry, and in the same way that if you're from industry, you'll be unhappy in the academy. And I feel like that needs to those walls need to come down a little bit.
Those walls need to come down, and that is one of our goals for this series as well, that we'll invite people who have careers spanning all these different disciplines and areas and choices. Just wrapping up, one final question for each of you. What would your advice be for anyone listening to the talk right now, or maybe later on demand? What would be one reason that you would give for them to listen to our series? Let's start with Jodi.
Yeah, so I think that we learned from those people who contributed some ideas when they registered, that there is a lot of interest out there in, how do I make career choices? How do I figure out how to become more able to do leadership responsibilities? How do I learn more about my technical area? And so for me, I think that this series is going to provide an opportunity for us to bring in people that can address a lot of those common concerns that we saw from many of you. And I think we have lots of good connections and contacts of people that can not only be role models, but also have really successful technical careers that we can offer.
Thank you. Rhian?
Well, one reason that I can tell would be to meet the role models and get inspired for never, ever underestimating yourselves.
Beautifully said. Emilia?
Yeah, so just opening up the opportunities and looking at all the different potential that is out there for you in terms of careers and volunteer opportunities. I feel like ACM-W really connects all these different avenues in order to bridge any divide that's perceived.
ACM-W connects, and ACM-W really cares. I don't think I have anything else to add to how beautifully Jodi, Rhian, and Emilia has covered some of the motivating factors of why you might consider listening into our series. Remember, I asked you to think about what career choices or what specific paths you would like us to focus on. On your screen, you would be seeing a feedback form link. If you can kindly go to that, it's small, I know, because I designed it. It will just take a minute. If you can kindly go to that link and fill out that form and let us know what you would like us to focus on. I assure you, all these forms come to me and I do read them. Rhian, Emilia, Jodi, thank you so much for spending an hour with me here today. I know how busy some of your schedules are. Ryan, you're in a completely different time zone. Jodi, I know how busy your days are as you start to prepare to get back to school, and Emilia, you too. Thank you so much for being here. Any parting thoughts? Let's start with Jodi.
Well, I just want to return that thanks to you, Bushra, for being willing to take this initiative and run with it. I think you're doing a great job. And I would encourage those who are in our audience to reach out to us, as Bushra said. Let us know what you want from this series, and we'll be happy to try to make that happen.
Ryan?
Thank you so much. I'm very hopeful about the impact of the series, and I will be very happy to help you whenever you need.
Thank you. Emilia?
Yes, I think this is a wonderful series, and I love the connection between industry and academia. And Bushra, this was a fantastic idea, and ACM-W will be better for it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us for the last hour. Hopefully, we'll see you in our next session. Keep an eye out on our Twitter page, and we will be posting as we figure out where we want to go next. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.